Jake Miller moved to Millfield, Oregon to start fresh. The neighborhood was quiet. Clean lawns, white fences, smiling neighbors. It felt perfect. He rented a small house on Willow Street. The rent was cheap. The house looked new, but something felt off. The neighbor's house next door was dark brown, old, and quiet. The windows had no curtains. Just a man standing there. Jake noticed him on the first night. He was standing in the window, staring, not moving, not blinking, just standing. Jake waved. No response. Maybe he's just weird, Jake muttered. He unpacked a few boxes, made coffee, and sat on the couch. When he looked back out the window, the neighbor was still there. Same position, same face. Hours passed. Midnight came. Jake turned off the lights and got ready for bed. Before sleeping, he peeked one last time. The man was still at the window, in the same spot. Jake stared back for a second. Nothing. No movement. No sign of life. Maybe he's always awake, Jake said with a nervous laugh. He closed the blinds and went to bed. Outside in the window, the neighbor stayed still, watching, waiting, never blinking. The next morning, Jake walked outside to grab his mail. The sun was bright, birds chirped, everything seemed normal again. He looked at the house next door. The man was gone from the window. Jake felt a little better. As he turned back, an older woman waved at him from across the street. She looked nervous but kind. "Morning," Jake said. She didn't smile, just walked across the lawn and leaned in close. "You moved in next to Grayson," she whispered. Jake nodded. "Yeah, quiet guy, doesn't talk much." Her face turned pale. "He doesn't talk, he doesn't sleep, and he's not normal." Jake chuckled awkwardly. "You mean like mentally ill?" "No," she said, eyes wide. "I mean not human." Jake froze. Before he could ask anything else, she turned and hurried back inside. She slammed her door. Curtains closed. Jake stood there, confused. Back at his house, he looked at the neighbor's window again. Mr. Grayson was back. Same spot. Same blank face. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He went inside and locked the door. The old woman's voice echoed in his mind. "He's not human." Jake tried to ignore it. He told himself the old woman was just scared or crazy. Maybe the neighbor had a condition. Maybe he was just lonely. But every time Jake passed a window, he felt it eyes on him. That night around 11:30 p.m., Jake made some tea and sat on the couch. He didn't want to check the window. He forced himself to look away. But something pulled him toward it. A feeling. Slowly he turned his head. Mr. Grayson was there. Same spot. Same stare. Still not blinking. Jake's hand shook as he sipped his tea. He stood, walked toward the window and stared back. Minutes passed. Grayson didn't move. Didn't flinch. Didn't react. Jake waved again. Nothing. He stepped back, pulled the blinds down and tried to watch a movie. But he couldn't focus. The feeling didn't stop. It was like someone was standing right behind him, breathing, watching. At 3 a.m., Jake peeked again. Grayson was still there. Jake whispered, "Do you ever sleep?" No answer, only silence. Only those eyes. Watching, always watching. Jake started tracking the lights next door. They never turned off. Morning, afternoon, midnight. Didn't matter. That house stayed lit like a store that never closed. Even the porch light stayed on. Jake found it strange. Nobody else in the neighborhood left their lights on all night. He checked again at 2:07 a.m. through the side blinds. There he was. Mr. Grayson, same window, same eyes, same cold stare. Jake grabbed his phone and snapped a picture. When he looked at the photo, the window was empty. "What the?" he said, blinking. He checked again. Grayson was there. He took another photo. Empty window. Jake's stomach dropped. He stepped outside quietly and walked toward the sidewalk. As he got closer to the house, something moved behind the blinds, the shape of a man, tall, thin, still. Jake backed away fast. He returned to his porch and stood there staring across the lawn. The shape didn't move, it just waited. Jake went inside and locked the door tight. He turned every light on in his house and kept looking at the clock. He didn't sleep. He couldn't because someone across the street never did either. Jake couldn't take it anymore. He dialed 911 Millfield Police. "What's your emergency?" the voice asked. Jake tried to stay calm. "My neighbor, he never sleeps. He stands at the window all night, just watching. I think something's wrong." There was a pause. "We'll send someone to check," the dispatcher said. 15 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. Officer Diane Brooks stepped out. She looked tired but alert. Jake met her on his porch and explained everything. She nodded. "Let's go talk to him." Jake followed her across the lawn. She knocked on Grayson's door. He answered immediately. "Good evening, officer," he said in a calm, slow voice. "Is something wrong?" He looked normal. Clean shirt, bare feet, soft smile. Jake stared confused. "Ask him about the window," he whispered. Officer Brooks asked politely. "Sir, neighbors are concerned. Do you sleep?" Grayson smiled. "Insomnia. I read a lot. Sorry if I bothered anyone." She thanked him and walked back with Jake. "No crime here," she said. "Just a strange guy." Jake didn't argue, but as the cop left, Jake turned. Grayson was already back in the window. Same face, same stare, same fear crawling through Jake's chest. That night, Jake stayed awake. Every light in his house was on. He kept the blinds closed, but he couldn't stop listening. At 1:48 a.m., he heard something. Footsteps. Slow, heavy steps outside, not on the sidewalk on his porch. Jake froze. The steps moved past the front door, along the side of the house. He grabbed a kitchen knife and crept toward the back window. Quietly, he pulled the curtain, nothing. Then he heard it accurate under his bedroom window. Jake raced upstairs, his heart pounded. He pulled the curtain fast. Still nothing, but the grass outside was wet, and on the ground he saw something, muddy footprints leading from the street. Straight to his window, Jake stumbled back. He checked the locks on every door, every window, all locked. He sat on the couch, gripping the knife, eyes wide. At 3 a.m., there was a sound on the front porch, just a soft tap, then silence. He didn't check. He just waited for the sun to rise. When morning came, he opened the door slowly. No one was there. But on the porch in the dust was one word written with a finger. A W-A-K-E. Jake needed proof. That afternoon he bought a new security camera and installed it above his front door. It was motion activated and connected to his phone. He set it to record all night. Before going to bed, he checked the street one last time. Mr. Grayson was already at his window. Jake closed the blinds and turned off the lights. This time he didn't sleep. He sat in bed, holding his phone, watching the camera feed. At 1:03 a.m., the motion alert buzzed. Jake's hand shook as he opened the footage. Nothing, just black. The video cut out from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. He checked the memory. Deleted all of it. Jake jumped up, ran to the front door, and looked outside. Grayson was gone from the window, but Jake's porch light flickered. He looked down. There, on the welcome mat, sat his camera, unplugged, wires cut, carefully placed, like a gift. Jake stepped back inside and locked everything again. His phone buzzed once more. A new message from an unknown number. It read, "Sleep is dangerous. Don't make me come inside." Jake stared at the screen, frozen. The neighbor wasn't just watching now. He was warning. Jake didn't reply. He deleted the message and blocked the number. But deep down, he knew that didn't matter. He went to the police the next morning, showed them the footprints, the message, even the camera with the wires cut. The officer looked bored. "Maybe a prank," he said. "Your neighbor's an old man. Probably harmless." Jake shook his head. "You don't know him. He never sleeps. He watches all night." The officer sighed. "We'll file a report, but there's not much we can do unless something happens." Jake left the station, angry and scared. That night he stayed up again. No lights this time, just shadows. At 2:17 a.m., his phone buzzed. A photo from a different unknown number. It showed Jake, asleep, in his own bed. But Jake hadn't slept at all. He stared at the photo, and his blood ran cold. The photo wasn't old. It was taken that night. He looked around the room, panicked. Every window was shut. Every door was locked. Still, someone had been inside. Jake checked the photo again. In the background, just barely visible, Grayson's face, smiling in the darkness. Jake tore through his house, checking every closet, every cabinet, every vent. No one, no sign of a break-in, but that photo kept haunting him. Someone had stood right over him and taken it. The only door Jake hadn't opened in years was the basement. It had been locked since he moved in. The realtor told him the previous owner sealed it after a flood. Tonight, Jake found the key in an old kitchen drawer. His hands trembled as he slid it into the lock. Click, the door creaked open. Stairs led down into pitch black. The air was cold, wet. Jake stepped slowly. Each creak of the wooden steps sounded like a scream. At the bottom he found something strange. An old bed, fresh sheets, empty food wrappers, a cup of coffee still warm. Someone had been living down here recently. He turned to go back upstairs, but something moved behind the furnace. Jake raised his phone flashlight. A shadow slipped out of view. "Who's there?" Jake shouted. No answer. He climbed the stairs 2 steps at a time. But as he reached the top, the door slammed shut, locked from the outside. Jake pounded on the door. "Let me out." Silence. His flashlight flickered. He turned and looked down the dark stairs. Something was moving, slow, heavy, dragging footsteps. Jake backed against the door. The air was cold, like a freezer. His phone lost signal. The light died. Total darkness. Jake could hear the breathing, not his. Someone else close, then a whisper. "Why do you sleep, Jake?" Jake froze. That voice. It was Grayson, but it came from the shadows below. Jake reached for anything, an old pipe, a metal rod. He held it tight. The footsteps stopped. So did the breathing. 4 minutes. Nothing. Then, the door clicked. Unlocked. Jake didn't wait. He ran up and slammed it shut behind him. He shoved a chair under the knob. His heart raced. He couldn't stay in that house anymore. He ran across the street to warn someone. But when he reached Grayson's house, something stopped him. The door was wide open. Inside, no furniture, no lights, just walls covered with photos. Photos of Jake sleeping from every room, every angle, every night. Jake stepped inside the empty house. His footsteps echoed. The walls were covered floor to ceiling with photos of him. Photos of Jake brushing his teeth, watching TV, eating dinner, sleeping, all taken from different angles. Some from high above, some from right beside him. His stomach twisted. These weren't just recent, they went back years. Grayson had been watching him since he moved in. Jake picked up one photo. It showed him in his backyard, smiling. He couldn't remember anyone being there. Behind that photo was another, and another, hundreds of them, each labeled with a date and time. Some photos were from last night. He found one from just 10 minutes ago. It showed him standing right where he was now. He dropped it and turned a noise upstairs, creaking floorboards. Jake backed toward the door. He called out, "Grayson, what do you want?" No reply. He ran back across the street, locked his doors, boarded his windows. He called the police. They said they'd send someone, but no one came. Midnight hit, and once again, Jake saw Grayson standing outside, smiling, still unblinking, not moving, not sleeping. Jake sat in the dark, holding a baseball bat. The only light came from the street lamp. Grayson stood across the street, still not moving, not blinking, not breathing. Jake's phone battery died. He had no way to call for help. Then the doorbell rang. Ding dong. Jake froze. He didn't move. The bell rang again. Ding dong, then knocking. Slow and hard. Boom, boom, boom. Jake stepped toward the door and whispered, "Who is it?" No answer, just silence. Then, a voice through the door, Grayson's voice. "You're awake. Good, I need you." Jake backed away. Something slammed against the door, harder, over and over. The wood began to crack. Jake ran to the back door, but it was locked from the outside, windows nailed shut. He was trapped. Another bang at the front, then quiet. Jake crept to the peephole. Grayson was gone. He turned to grab his flashlight, but it was already on, lying on the table, shining at the stairs, and at the top, a dark shape, watching him. Not Grayson. Something else. Something older. Something that had never slept. Jake didn't move. The shape at the top of the stairs didn't either, but he felt it watching. Like heat from a fire, he could feel it stare. The shape bent forward slightly, then whispered, "You shouldn't have opened the basement." Jake ran. He didn't care where. He sprinted through the kitchen, toward the garage, tried the garage door, locked. He looked back. The shape was now halfway down the stairs, not walking, just sliding down. Jake grabbed a knife from the counter, swung wildly, but nothing came. Silence. He turned around. The shape was gone. Jake backed into a corner, holding the knife tight. Then he saw it on the wall, a mirror. His reflection, but not alone. Behind him, in the mirror, stood the figure, long arms, gray skin, no eyes, just empty holes. Jake turned, nothing, turned back to the mirror, still there, moving closer. He smashed the mirror. Glass everywhere, but the shape didn't stop. It kept walking through the broken glass and whispered again, "You let me in." Jake screamed. Then quiet. The house returned to silence, but the front door, it creaked open slowly. The front door stood wide open. Jake slowly stepped toward it, knife shaking in his hand. Outside, the street was empty. No cars, no wind, no sound, just silence. Then a whisper, faint like wind through trees, but it came from behind him. He turned, nothing. The whisper grew louder. Now it was saying his name. Yuck. He ran out the door into the street, looking for help. He banged on his neighbor's door across the street. No answer. The lights flicked off. He tried the next house. Locked, dark. The whisper followed him. It was now right behind him. Then he saw Mr. Lee standing still in the middle of his yard, staring at him, eyes wide open. No blinking, no movement. Jake yelled, "Help me." Mr. Lee didn't respond, just stared, then smiled. Not normal, too wide, too sharp. Jake stepped back. Mr. Lee raised his hand, pointed to Jake's house and whispered, "You brought it back." Jake looked at his own home. The front door slammed shut. Lights turned on, one by one. All the windows glowed red. Jake knew it wasn't over. Something inside was waiting. Jake didn't move. The red glow from his house burned in his eyes. Mr. Lee stood like a statue. That smile never left his face. Suddenly the sky turned black. Clouds swirled. A cold wind hit. The streetlights exploded one by one. Jake turned to run, but the ground shook. His legs gave out. Then he heard footsteps, coming from inside his house. Fast, heavy. The front door creaked open again. This time, something stepped out. Not Mr. Lee, not a person. It was tall, wrapped in shadows. No face, just glowing white eyes. Jake froze. The shadow pointed at him. "You saw. You followed. You belong." Jake screamed and ran, but every house he passed was gone. Just black space, empty lots. Like the street never existed. He turned back. His house was gone too. Only Mr. Lee stood in the middle, still smiling. "Now you understand," he said. Jake tried to speak, but no words came. He felt cold, heavy. He looked at his hands. They were turning gray, fading. Jake fell to his knees. His voice returned for one last whisper. "Please, Then silence. Mr. Lee blinked for the first time, and smiled wider.